Amara stood before the glowing spirit, her heart filled with determination. She had learned the truth about her mother's secret magic, and now she had to make a choice. The pact Mama Ngozi had made with the spirits had given her great cooking skills, but it came at a terrible price. Amara felt torn, knowing that breaking the pact would change everything. She thought about her mother, who had always cooked with love, and the village that admired her. But deep down, Amara knew what she had to do. With a deep breath, she whispered, "I'm ready to break the pact." Amara took a deep breath and stepped onto the path leading to the sacred well. The forest around her was thick with trees, and the air felt heavy with magic. The whispers from the wind seemed to guide her, leading her deeper into the unknown. Every step felt like a challenge, but Amara's determination pushed her forward. She could hear the sound of distant birds and rustling leaves, but it felt strangely quiet. The journey was long, and her legs grew tired, but she knew that the sacred well held the key to breaking the pact. She couldn't turn back now. Amara finally reached the sacred well, hidden deep in the forest. The well was ancient, its stone edges covered in moss. The water inside was dark, almost black, and seemed to shimmer with an eerie glow. It felt like the water was alive, swirling slowly, as if holding secrets from the past. Amara hesitated, feeling the power of the pact still lingering in the air. She knew that breaking the magic meant confronting this dark water, but she couldn't turn back. With a steady breath, she stepped forward, ready to do what she had to, no matter the cost. The ancient words the spirit had told her echoed in Amara's mind as she stared at the dark water. "Speak the words with your heart," the spirit had said. Amara closed her eyes, feeling the weight of the moment. She knew that once she spoke, everything would change. With trembling lips, she began to chant the words, her voice growing stronger with each syllable. The air around her seemed to grow colder, and the water in the well started to swirl faster. It was as if the well itself was resisting. But Amara continued, determined to break the pact once and for all. As soon as Amara finished speaking the ancient words, the ground beneath her feet trembled. The air grew thick, and the sky above turned dark. A deep rumbling sound filled the forest, and Amara could feel the power of the pact fighting back. The well's dark waters began to bubble violently, sending splashes of black liquid into the air. The magic was awakening, and the force trying to protect the pact was stronger than she imagined. Amara's heart raced as the world around her shook. She knew she had to stay strong, no matter how terrifying the consequences might be. From the depths of his well, a dark shadow began to rise. It swirled and twisted in the air, taking the shape of a giant figure. Its glowing eyes stared at Amara, and its voice echoed in her mind. "You dare break my bond?" it hissed, its voice cold and threatening. The shadow stretched out its long, twisting arms, reaching toward her. Amara felt a chill run down her spine, but she didn't step back. She had made her decision, and there was no turning back now. "I must," Amara said softly, her voice steady. "I must break the pact." The shadow's dark form loomed over Amara, its voice booming with anger. "If you break the pact, your mother will lose her power," it warned. "The food she cooks will no longer be magical. She will be nothing." Amara's heart sank as she heard these words. She couldn't imagine her mother without the magic, without the special meals that everyone loved. But deep inside, she knew what she had to do. "I don't care about the magic," Amara whispered. "I care about my mother's happiness. I won't let this darkness control us anymore." The shadow's eyes glowed brighter, angry at her defiance. The shadow's form began to tremble, its anger growing stronger. "You think you can break this bond so easily?" it hissed. "You will pay a price." Amara stood her ground, feeling both fear and determination. She had no choice but to continue. Just as the shadow began to reach for her, the guardian spirit appeared, glowing brighter than ever. "You cannot defeat the light of truth," the spirit said, raising its hand to shield Amara. The shadow howled in frustration, but the spirit's power held it back. "You've already chosen," the spirit whispered. "The pact is broken. Now, face the consequences." As the shadow struggled against the spirit's light, Amara felt the ground beneath her feet begin to settle. The dark force slowly began to shrink, its power weakening. The air felt lighter, and the oppressive heaviness that had filled the forest started to fade. The shadow let out one final angry screech before it vanished completely, leaving only silence behind. The spirit turned to Amara, its glowing face softening. "You have done it, child," the spirit said. "The pact is broken, but remember, magic always has a price. Be ready for what comes next." Amara nodded, knowing that her journey was far from over. Amara stood in the now quiet forest, her heart pounding. The once dark waters of the well had returned to their peaceful state, but a strange stillness filled the air. As she turned to leave, she noticed that the world around her seemed changed. The trees were less vibrant, the animals quiet. It was as if the magic that had once surrounded the well had seeped into everything. She felt a wave of sadness wash over her. What had she done? The magic was gone, but at what cost? With a heavy heart, Amara began her journey home, wondering what awaited her next. Amara's journey home felt longer than ever. As she walked through the forest, the once familiar path now seemed unfamiliar and cold. The trees, which used to sing with the wind, now stood still, as if mourning the magic that had been broken. When she finally reached her village, she was met with a strange silence. The usual sounds of laughter and chatter were gone. She entered her home and found Mama Ngozi standing by the fire, stirring a pot. The warmth of the kitchen felt different, and Amara's heart sank. Her mother's cooking no longer had its magical scent. Mama Ngozi turned to Amara, her eyes filled with sadness. She sniffed the air and let out a long sigh. "The magic is gone, isn't it?" she whispered. Amara nodded, her throat tight. She expected her mother to be angry, but instead, Mama Ngozi simply stared into the pot. "I always knew this day would come," she said softly. She lifted a spoon to taste the food, but as she swallowed, tears welled in her eyes. "It's just ordinary now." Amara stepped closer, placing a hand on her mother's. "We don't need magic, Mama," she said. "We still have each other." Mama Ngozi looked at Amara, her eyes filled with both sadness and understanding. She smiled faintly and whispered, "I wanted to be the best, but I see now that I lost something more important." Amara squeezed her hand, feeling the weight of her mother's words. Together they had faced the consequences, but now they had a chance to rebuild. "We still have love, Mama," Amara said, her voice steady. Mama Ngozi nodded, wiping away a tear. "Yes, we do." They stood together in the kitchen, knowing that no magic could ever replace the bond they shared. A new beginning had begun. The next morning, Amara and Mama Ngozi decided to cook together, just like they used to, before the magic. They gathered simple ingredients, rice, vegetables, and some fish, and started preparing the meal. It wasn't as special as the magical dishes Mama had once cooked, but it was made with care and love. As they worked side by side, Amara realized that this was more than enough. The laughter and warmth in the kitchen filled her heart. When they sat down to eat, the food may not have been magical, but it tasted like home. And that was all that mattered. As the days passed, life in the village slowly returned to normal. People still came to Mama Ngozi's home, but now they came for the warmth and kindness she gave, not for her magical cooking. At first, some villagers whispered about the change, but over time, they came to appreciate the simple, hearty meals that Mama prepared with love. Amara noticed that her mother seemed lighter, happier, as she embraced her new life. They worked together in the garden, shared stories, and enjoyed each other's company. Amara realized that true magic wasn't in the food, it was in the love they shared. One evening, as Amara and Mama Ngozi sat by the fire, Amara thought about how much had changed. The The magic was gone, but their bond had only grown stronger. "You know, Mama," Amara said, looking at the flames, "I never really understood before how much love goes into cooking." Mama Ngozi smiled and nodded. "Love makes all things special, even the simplest meals," she replied. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the fire crackle. Amara realized that they didn't need magic or special powers to feel fulfilled. Their love, their time together, that was the true recipe for happiness. As the weeks passed, Amara began to see the change in her mother. Mama Ngozi no longer seemed sad or lost. She was at peace with herself and her choices. One afternoon, a neighbor came by and asked if Mama could cook for an upcoming village feast. Amara's heart fluttered with worry, but Mama Ngozi simply smiled and agreed. The feast came, and though her food was not magical, it was the most delicious meal anyone had ever tasted. The villagers praised her, not for the magic, but for the love that filled every bite. Amara realized this was enough. The feast was a success, and as the villagers gathered around, Amara couldn't help but feel proud of her mother. It wasn't the magical dishes that impressed everyone. It was the warmth and care in every meal. That night, Mama Ngozi sat beside Amara, content and peaceful. "I used to think I needed magic to be special," she said softly, "but now I know it's the love we share that makes everything special." Amara smiled and nodded, her heart full. She had learned that true magic wasn't found in dark waters or packs, but in the simple, everyday moments spent together. One evening, as the sun set behind the hills, Amara and Mama Ngozi sat outside, enjoying the cool breeze. "You've taught me so much, Mama," Amara said, resting her head on her mother's shoulder. Mama Ngozi smiled, her heart full of pride. "You've always been my strength, my dear," she replied. "Now, we live without magic, but we have something far more powerful." Amara looked up at the stars, feeling a deep sense of peace. "We have love," she whispered. Mama Ngozi kissed her forehead, "and that's all we'll ever need." Together they sat, knowing they were ready for whatever came next. As the seasons changed, Amara and Mama Ngozi grew closer than ever. The village flourished with their presence, and more people came by to help with the garden, sharing stories and laughter. Life was simple, but it was filled with warmth and connection. One afternoon, as Amara walked through the village, she overheard a conversation. The villagers were speaking about how Mama Ngozi's food had become even better, rich with flavor, not from magic, but from her heart. Amara smiled, realizing that the true magic had always been in the love and effort Mama put into everything she did. It was enough.